Welcome to another episode of Not About Wrestling, the only interview show featuring the biggest names in professional wrestling that's actually not about professional wrestling. I'm your host, Chris Illuminati, and on today's show, I'm talking to RJ City. RJ is a self-proclaimed wrestling raconteur, he's wrestling's premier entertainer, and he's one pretty funny guy. In this episode, RJ and I discuss a myriad of topics, including Scott Steiner and the most uncomfortable lobster dinner ever, the one time RJ wrestled a one-armed Bushwacker, RJ's infamous tag team partner, David Arquette, and his new movie, and why people still fucking love the Golden Girls. So without further ado, Not About Wrestling presents RJ City. What's up, everybody, and welcome to Not About Wrestling with Chris Illuminati. I am here today with, what would be the best way to describe you? The wrestling raconteur? Is that, would that be?
Raconteur. You have to pronounce it correctly. That's
Right,
usually the first step.
I don't pronounce anything correctly. It's RJ City, everyone.
I have a question. Let's start off with a question.
All right, then I'll go into my field.
With all this QAnon alt-right business going on,
Okay.
how hard is it to have people make assumptions about your last name?
You know what's funny? It's not any more recently than they always have, but once a week I'll get, and I know it's coming, I'll get a Nigerian fella start following me on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I'll get the, how do I become part of the Illuminati? And my, blanket response is bang my mom.
Right.
And you're in, and they don't get it. Now, here's the one step further that I did take this. I talked to a local detective, and I asked him.
A PI?
Yes. And I asked him, how far can I take the whole charade of my name with these guys?
Right.
Because a lot of them want to get into the Illuminati. So I say to them sometimes, PayPal me $500 and you can be in. I said, is that illegal? He said, as long as you send them some type of paperwork or something just saying that you're part of this mysterious thing, you're okay. So I do have a piece of paperwork drawn up should anyone send me the $500 via PayPal.
You have like a Word doc certificate template?
Yes, it's got like the little Microsoft, like old, the guy that used to help you like in Microsoft.
The paperclip?
Paperclip, yes. He's down at the bottom. And it says you're an official member of the Illuminati. And should anyone ask to be a part, they get that certificate and I get their $500.
Congratulations, applicant. You are now in the Illuminati. That is so nice.
Now, flip side, I have had people pretend to be me and swindle women out of money. And the women come back looking for me to get their money back or ask where I've gone.
Right.
Yeah. So that's uncomfortable when I have to break the news to them that it's not me.
That's the problem with the Illuminati. And to be honest, also the Freemasons, is that you're so secretive that it's hard to verify anything.
It is.
And go ahead.
No,
well, my grandfather was apparently a Freemason.
Okay.
Really secret about it. Didn't really tell anyone. Apparently they have this handshake. They'll never say what it is. So you can go around telling people. I could say, hey, my grandfather's in a thing. Here's the handshake. And then people would just assume,
How did you find out?
He had a ring. And that was pretty much it. And that's the one thing he had that was, from them or anything. And he, left it when he died. He had it. I don't own it. But that was just the one thing. And they seemed like the mafia, but only to do nice things. It was like a cross between the mafia and the Boy Scouts. It was very bizarre. And then I went to like a Pioneer Village kind of thing one year. And they had the Freemasons there setting up shop. I don't know why. I was asking because I want to know what my grandfather did. He didn't tell me shit. I would like to know. I said, I'm interested because my grandfather was blah, blah, blah. And they took it as I wanted to join. And they were like, you know what? There's a local meeting on Tuesdays at 7:30 when they let out. Just hang around there. Ask for Doug. Tell him Todd sent you. And I'm like, you know what, boys? I think we're good here.
I find it interesting that a society wants to say secret, and the only thing they have to show each other that they're in the society is jewelry.
Yeah.
A ring.
Similarly, there's these old women in the States have a thing called the Red Hat Society.
I've heard
and
of
they
it.
get together and they have tea and they have this giant red hat. And I'm like, I think it's pretty obvious what group you belong to.
Can you have secret societies anymore?
Well, look at me. As a wrestler, I'm probably in the worst kept secret society ever.
Well, I mean, part of that is your fault.
Yes. Yeah, certainly. I'm a huge contributor. I look around and I go, it's not a secret, guys. Why are we still acting like it is? We're not magicians. Let's all calm down.
Yeah. Well, that's what I think people like about you. You recognize that, like with most professions, most of it's bullshit.
Yeah, well, I mean, most of life is.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's this huge. I never realized like how deep it would go being on the inside of the business and people still believing things and there's a right way to do things. I'm like, guys, this has been a mess from the beginning. Like it started as like this long con from the circus.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just enjoy it for what it is.
Has anyone ever come up to you and said what you're doing is ruining the business?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Old guys, those Jim Cornette kind of guys. Not that I'm interested in giving him any more publicity because his currency is controversy to get podcast clicks. But I simply point out to them usually that in 1925, the New York Times stopped covering wrestling because they knew it was fake.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I believe my point was been made decades before me.
Mm-hmm.
This is just the natural. I would just like it more out in the open.
It's funny how they're okay with people outside of the business saying it's fake, but people inside the business can't say that.
It's also like that bond of brotherhood, you know. I think that keeps people together, and we do this a common way because we, whatever. It's like having a little like secret with a friend when you're a kid. It's like that kind of Santa Claus deal. It is so bizarre, but when you get out, it's more. I also think because I do acting stuff and comedy stuff, I'm able to see in real time that it's the exact same thing.
If wrestling were to have any type of secret like thing, like would they have jewelry? Would there be a handshake? What would they go for?
A fanny pack.
A fanny pack. Ooh, that's.
And I think that's literally it. There's a huge, symbolism of wrestlers really wanting to have the symbol of like what an old wrestler used to have: the fanny pack and the Zubas and the Ribera Steakhouse jacket. And some of them will have the chewing tobacco. This kind of thing, which is also like a baseball thing. You see a lot of amateur baseball players do that because they want to be real baseball players. And somehow to them, that signifies it. You know what I mean? Like, I will tell you something. When I wear a satin jacket, I feel like I am producing a variety show in the 70s. It does make me feel like that. And that's kind of why I like to wear them. Does it make me that? No. But I like to play this little fantasy in my mind.
Do you own a fanny pack?
Yes, but a very thin one.
Okay.
A very, very thin one just for traveling when I need my passport, that kind of thing, and I have to take it out and...
More like a...
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very, very... It's not bulbous at all. I could hide it under my shirt and you wouldn't know.
Right. Well, I think the fanny packs back in the day were more, where were you going to put all those prescription pills?
Yes, certainly. So especially, if you have a sinus infection, it's a whole thing. But they did. I think they would just put a lot, and it was really a dick measuring contest at fanny pack. You wanted a big one, just like in the 80s. The stereotype is the woman with the big purse, and then they got very small and they turned into clutches. And this podcast is about purses and handbags, right?
It is now.
Okay, perfect.
I could talk about this stuff all day.
Yes. Well, yeah, it was very like, you want that big one, and look at all the pockets I have in this thing, you know? But it seemed very uncomfortable. Also, when you wear those big ones, they make noise as you walk. They like wobble. It's very weird.
If you're going to speculate, what do you think is in the current wrestler's fanny pack?
Great question. Phone charger.
Okay.
I think that would be a useful one. What else? Probably like a protein bar. The business has gotten, I would say, generally speaking, healthier overall.
Yeah. Well, the purpose of the fanny pack is to have your most important things at hand access. So what needs to be that close that can't go in a duffel bag or like what needs to be that at hand?
Nothing at this point. This is why it's purely symbolism, because your phone can go in your pocket. That's all you need.
Well, I don't understand the original fanny packs because what needed to go, like men had pockets back in those days. They
very big pockets.
Yeah. Numerous pockets sometimes when you went cargo, you know.
But it's almost like, you know, putting your keys on a lanyard around your neck. It's almost an admittance that you're irresponsible with your own belongings. You know, it's not just that, oh, I have pockets, I can put them in my pockets. It's, if I put stuff in my pockets, I'm going to lose it. So I have to secure it.
What level of anger do you think a guy would get for messing with his fanny pack these days?
Like messing with someone else's fanny pack?
Yeah, like they're in the ring and you like take their fanny pack. Like where's that on the level? Like what
there are certain people who think it's just like a great source of pride.
Okay.
That fanny pack. So I think they would be highly, highly upset.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I would love to do the opposite. And instead of take it or take things out, I would like to put things in their fanny pack.
What would you put in there?
Maybe like a whistle, just a small slide whistle. I say, what did I get up to that I have? Well, I guess I'm going to use this. Maybe it'll be my new gimmick.
I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that happen. I'd also like to see how it hit the dirt sheets that guys had random slide whistles put into their.
Yeah, that thing.
So, one of the topics that I want to talk to you about today, well, real quick, because I thought you would find this funny. My kids are going to a new school.
Yes.
They moved, and they're going to a new school starting in 2 weeks. And when you start up these new schools, you get signed up for all the new emails, and everything is called, like every school you go to is the blank blank family.
Right.
So whatever the name of the school is, welcome, hello to the blank blank family. Mm-hmm. My kids now go to a elementary school called Bret Hart. Yes. Spelled differently.
All one word?
No, Bret Hart is the person's name, but it's
Who was this person?
RTE. I haven't looked that part up yet because I can't get past the emails welcoming me to the Bret Hart family.
You're in.
And I can't wait for the first day to meet the other new parents. Like there's people that have gone there forever, but I want to go Bret Hart. Like I want to drop jokes.
You want to just go, hey, everyone?
That's what I showed my son. He does not get it. I told him to put someone in a sharpshooter the first day. I don't, you know, it's humorous to me every time.
Bret Hart, and I've done a couple of indie shows with him, and we did a pilot together. He's one of those people, and it bothers me that people do not know or appreciate how funny he is.
Okay.
Because he did do, like, everything he did most of the time was incredibly serious.
Yes.
Wrestling wise, but then he did that wonderful El Dandy promo in WCW.
Yeah,
and it's one of the funniest promos of all time. Mm-hmm. It's insanely hilarious. And knowing him, obviously very dry sense of humor, but very funny. And in that sense, he reminds me of perhaps a Richard Dreyfuss, where you watch What About Bob as a kid, and you're like, this Bill Murray guy is hilarious. Leo Marvin, get out of the way. But you watch it as an adult and you go, I understand Leo Marvin. I'm relating to Richard Dreyfuss. He is really driving this plot. I think as an adult, you can go watch old Bret Hart matches now and then appreciate it in a whole new way.
What wrestler that you've worked with or come across who comes off incredibly hard ass on screen is actually very funny behind the scenes?
Oh my, very funny.
Like
Trying to think.
I've
Go
heard
ahead.
on more than a few occasions that Arn Anderson is very funny.
He's one of those people because I think everybody is like scared, or reverent of him.
Mm.
And I think he uses that to his advantage. Similarly, I would perhaps say Scott Steiner.
Mm.
We did a tour on the East Coast once, of the East Coast of Canada, in towns that would basically close up at 9 p.m. So there was really never anything to eat after the show. You would have to go to like McDonald's. It was very depressing.
Mm-hmm.
But we did a show in, I think, New Brunswick or something, and we were right on the water, and they had this big lobster house across from the hotel. And Sags from the Nasty Boys, the veteran that he is, went there in the day, sweet-talked the manager, and got them to stay open late for us after the show. Wow. Genius, right? Operating on a level that I'm nowhere near, okay? So we all kind of trickle into the show as we, get unchanged. We go to the restaurant, and it's like me, another guy, Billy Gunn, Scott Steiner, but there's a table because all the other wrestlers will be arriving. Mm-hmm. And the waitress goes, just so you guys know, we only have like a dozen lobsters left. At the end of the day, and so I'm starting to do the math in my head with my friend who was also an indie wrestler, and we're like, we don't want to get lobsters because, like, first of all, Billy Gunn is going to get like 4 lobsters, and we don't want to get ones. And then X-Pac or Bushwacker Luke shows up, and there's no lobsters, and they're like, yeah, those guys took them. Out of respect, we wanted to forego our lobsters, as if to say we are not worthy enough to have these lobsters, as if the hierarchy system of wrestling determines how many lobsters you can eat. Mm. This all like just clicked in our heads instantly. And my friend looks at me, he's like, what are you getting? I'm like, I think I'm going to get this steak. He's like, yeah, me too. And then Steiner's like, why ain't you guys getting lobsters? I was like, well, cause, and he said, cause you're jabronis? And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, that's pretty much it. He's like, I don't see it like that. You got here first, you eat first, get a lobster. But I still couldn't get a lobster. I couldn't bring myself to. I said, no, it's a shellfish thing. It's so weird. I couldn't live with myself.
You should have ordered them, and then if you got the last ones, you should have said, Scott Steiner made me do it.
You see, and then I was going to start shit between, it was actually is very interesting is that everyone, as you see, obviously the older guys just fuck with the younger guys, rib them and do whatever. Not that it's not like a hazing thing. It's just, it was fun stuff. Mm-hmm. But you see the hierarchy where they'll fuck with everybody who came after them in the business, right, but they won't fuck with anyone who came before them.
Right.
So, like, Nasty Boys will fuck with everybody but Bushwacker Luke. Because Bushwacker Luke was wrestling since, like, the early 70s. Mm-hmm. And you just, like, you don't touch that person. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It's very interesting to see that system. Because I'm sure, like everyone else in the world, if you give someone a hard time, when you started, you were probably given a hard time.
Uh-huh. See, now, as the outsider looking in, and I don't know why I feel this way, naming everyone you just named, I feel like the fucking around would go, like, I feel like Bushwacker Luke would get fucked with because of his on-screen character. Like, to me, that, like, I imagine him, he walks in the restaurant like this, like, I can't separate. But now that you mention it, the sheep herders were some bad motherfuckers in the beginning, who every match was blood, so I do get that. It's very much a fraternity feeling where you don't fuck with the pledge classes above you, but you can screw with the guys under you.
Yes, absolutely. And you would you would enter the business looking at those people as people you want to aspire to be. Mm-hmm. So you wouldn't put them on your level at all. And, Bushwacker Luke is a great example of a guy who you're like, you only saw him in WWF, you're like, he's a straight cartoon character, but he's not that. I mean, he's that and everything else. Mm-hmm. He was a booker in Puerto Rico. He's incredibly smart, and he's still last time I worked him, he was like 69 years old. I just remember him saying, like, I'm going to give you clothesline, but I can only clothesline you with my left because my right arm, quote, doesn't work. And I went, that's an interesting way of putting it. It's just there. He seems to be there. But yet, he would call stuff that I'd be like, no. He was like, you want to give me a spine buster? I'm like, no. You out of your mind? He's like, how about a boss man slam? I'm like, your gut is out to here. I'm going to die. I couldn't do that to you. Please. But, like, he works. And then when you see someone like that, like, at, 69 or where the hell he is, and he's, like, working. You're like, dear Lord, I got to get my shit together. He's got this hustle. You have to appreciate. And, some of those guys get written off, especially, like, just doing those indie shows, making appearances and whatever. And then you see them work, and you're like, oh, okay. You're still genuinely earning your money.
I find it interesting that you look at him performing at 69 and you're like, I got to get my shit together, and not like, oh my God, I got to start a savings account.
That too. But I will say some of these people love to still do this.
Yeah.
It's not like and some of them have the money and want more money, especially if they can just show up on weekends and rake in some cash and some merch and whatever, and like, great. Give it to their grandkids or whatever. Like, that's pretty cool for them in a way. And you just see like, oh, like that doesn't, the enjoyment of working for them did not seem to go away. I mean, for some people, sure, it's horrible. It's their own personal hell.
True. But also what makes it different than generations past was, I mean, at any given time right now, we can pop on the WWE Network or YouTube and watch as much Bushwhackers as we want. So there's still appreciation. Like, the younger fans learn and find these guys years down the line. Whereas before, once you left the business or weren't on something, you were just gone and that was it.
So this is my cultural theory. Okay. And so we can apply it really to all pop culture, is that something like the Golden Girls is more popular now than it's ever been for whatever reason. But because we're able to access it in the exact same way we can access, Breaking Bad, right? The same way. Before that, there would be shows on at prime time, and then those old shows would either be on like early in the morning, or like an obscure syndication and whatever. But we can like view them on the same level. Similar with wrestling. I mean, before the internet, really, tape traders, you would have to find this stuff in the weirdest places. Like, I had only seen that Andy Kaufman clip where Lawler slaps him on Letterman. You only see the clip of the slap for every highlight clip. It was greatest moment and whatever. You always see that. And then when I went to the TV museum in New York, I looked it up. So I'm like, I got to see the full thing. And the full episode is amazing. And now we can see all of this stuff. So I think now people can watch Jake Roberts work on the same plane, in the same way they can watch really anyone else. And I think that gives them a new appreciation for their stuff.
I do love that, but on the flip side, the downside of it, it allows some of the really bad stuff to remain around. The really awful, out of place, out of date. For an example, and it's still on the network, there's a Clash of the Champions from the early 90s where it's the Freebirds against the Southern Boys, and you could not fit another Confederate flag in the ring if you tried. It was on shirts, hats, like every single piece of ring attire that these guys were wearing. At the time, it wasn't a big deal. Now you look at it and you're like, a little bit.
Yeah, you're really... So on the flip side of that technology, you're also really devoid of the context.
Yes.
Of anything, of what was going on in the world, even like WrestleMania 7. Like, I'm not sure why everyone hates Sergeant Slaughter. I don't quite get the political climate, but okay. That is a very weird thing. And obviously that happens in the sitcoms and whatever all the time. But it's, really important to understand. I'm doing this new thing on my YouTube where I'm reviewing old sitcoms that have wrestling episodes.
Okay.
And I looked at one from 1952. It's an episode of Superman.
Okay. Who was on it?
Well, George Reeves.
No, who's the wrestler? Who's the
Nobody.
Oh.
They're actually actors who just did some tumbling stuff. And they got this the foreign man who teaches them nerve holds, exotic nerve holds, which just turns into basically just pinching men in the thigh, which is hilarious.
This isn't a film?
Basically, they do some apartment wrestling. And it's so weird to be like, oh, like anyone foreign is viewed as exotic and mysterious. You know what I mean? That's a thing where you're like, oh yeah, that's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
We've learned a lot since then. It's also baffling that the foreign man had no idea who Superman was.
Oh.
And I thought, but no matter where you are in the world, Superman can fly everywhere.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he help people in other parts of the world? Yeah. Imagine if he was a dick, if he was just like a US only guy. That would be horrible.
And you try to tell people in other countries, be like, no. Where like an American goes to visit another country, be like, no, there's a guy that can fly in our wait, what? Fly?
Yeah,
what?
Yeah. No. You gotta come here and see it because he's not gonna come to you.
He can't make it this far.
No. He can reverse time, but then he wants to stay, he's very metropolitan.
What's one of the funnier or more ironic shows that had a wrestling episode that you did not expect?
Night Court. Exactly. I had no idea, and I feel bad because I like Night Court, and I had no idea. It's on my list. Like I just skimmed everything, and I wrote a list of like a bunch of different shows. There's an episode of Walker, Texas Ranger. I'm very excited about. There's an episode of Mama's Family.
I'm assuming that all of the shows were like on networks where wrestling was also big. So in Night Court used to do Saturday Night's Main Event. So I'm guessing it was like a bleed over. Mama's Family was big in syndication. So I'm guessing.
Well, they were TBS. I mean, that was like.
Okay. Yeah.
And then there's also an incredible amount of wrestlers on game shows, like the Family Feud appearances. There were a lot of them. And they also did, and I don't know what the dates are, but it didn't seem that far apart. They did WWF episodes, and they also did WCW episodes. And I'm like, who is wheeling and dealing backstage at Family Feud to be able to pull this off?
They must have. Well, I'm guessing the WCW thing was it when they used to shoot at Disney?
That's possible.
Yeah, I don't know how WWE got in there.
Right.
The WCW thing was.
Then I just hosted a version of Match Game with Busted Open Radio with Dreamer and Mark Henry and Bully Ray.
Yeah.
And before that, we were talking about how Match Game and wrestling has never crossed over before. And then somebody messaged us with this clip. There was a woman's wrestler named Lola Kiss. Mm-hmm. And she was a contestant on the show. And she actually wrestled some celebrity who I'd never even heard of, like locked up with him and then took him down on the rug set. And then we looked her up and we're like, holy shit, Lola Kiss.
Wasn't there a wrestling version of the dating game too? Like, didn't wrestlers show up in the dating game?
I think you might be thinking of, they did a parody of it on Tuesday Night Titans.
Oh.
With the Hart Foundation. They were the three bachelors.
I just got back into Tuesday Night Titans.
Yes.
And I actually wrote, and I haven't published it yet, but I did a recap of the Vashon wedding. Have you seen that episode? Like, I want to know.
Is that the one where Dave Schultz hits him with the pie?
Yes, and there's like a dildo involved in a package, and Lou Albano is obviously hammered.
Yes,
and it's like it just goes off the rails.
When Dave Schultz nails Vince in the face with that cake, he says, "I've been waiting to do that for a long time," and I'm like, the subtext here is insane.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what a crazy moment of. This is all, it's a a wedding, which is also kind of a real wedding, but also fake. And also the boys are being the boys.
Yeah.
But it's still in this wrestling context. It's so incredibly weird.
And there's grabbing of little women that is completely inappropriate. It just goes like off the rails.
Another great TNT moment is, and I'm going back to Dr. D. She's showing off his gun collection.
I saw that. That was on Dark Side of the Ring. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
And they were in his guns though, and he like shot him, and Vince wasn't expecting it. And he's
Vince just screams at him. It's so perfect. Another one I love, because when you're a kid, you have very few wrestling tapes. Mm-hmm. You don't have access. Like, you'll take what you can get when you like wrestling.
Yeah.
And I had the best of the WWF Volume 3. Mm-hmm. And they had 2 segments from TNT. One was King Kong Bundy trying on wigs. That was the whole premise. To disguise himself in the airport because he's so famous, which is amazing. The other one was they were giving George Steele shock therapy and psychotherapy. And it's the most bizarre. It's him and Lou Albano, and they have this fake doctor named Dr. Sigmund Ziff. And when you have so few wrestling tapes as a kid, you'll watch them over and over again. Right. So every second of it is burned in your brain. Years later, I'm reading a WWF magazine, like 2002. And it's breaking down submissions and what body parts they hurt. And the doctor they reference is Dr. Sigmund Ziff. And I'm just like, this whole magazine is bullshit. What are we doing? I'm reading pages and pages of lies here. It's so weird.
It's so funny that whoever wrote that, they're like, you know what? I'm putting this joke in, and it's going to make one person laugh, and that's all I'm going for.
I was the guy. I was the big Sigmund Ziff guy.
I mean, it's going to crack some guy somewhere, and it's going to be worth it.
It was so worth it to me, and I'd like to thank that man. And also, you read, like, and it never dawned on me. I ended up talking to a writer for PWI, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and talking to him, he's like, oh, yeah, we used to make up those wrestler interviews, like, all the time. He's like, they would be really busy. We couldn't get X-Pac for an hour to have an interview. I'm like, holy shit, like, yeah, wrestling is entirely fake.
It truly is. I mean, and in that time, now, actually, I heard something, now that you bring that up, I feel like it was on one of the, like, maybe Something to Wrestle episodes with Bruce Pritchard. So one time in one of those interviews, they couldn't get Terry Funk, but they needed like a photo shoot of Terry Funk. He made up a fake NWA belt and wore it for a photo shoot, claiming to be the champion. And people lost their fucking mind.
Yeah.
People in the industry, they're like, what are you doing? They're like, you're not the NWA champion. And he was like, it's just a photo shoot, guys. Like, I'm just fucking around. And like, it made it in the magazine.
So I follow an Instagram that posts like old WWF magazine stuff. Mm-hmm. And there would be like these little profiles would be like the British Bulldog's favorite food, favorite video game. There was one on Jeff Jarrett, who I've worked with a bunch and is super cool and a lot of fun. And it said his favorite actress was Juliette Lewis. So I sent it to him. I'm like, the fuck is this? And I saw him. I didn't hear anything. And then I saw him at, I think we did a House of Hardcore show, and there was a convention before, and he was there, and he's like, he ran up to me. He's like, that fucking Juliette Lewis. I was like, yeah, what's the deal? He's like, man, I don't know. They used to fill in shit all the time. He's like, there's probably some popular movie out, and they're like, just her. He's like, I can't think of one thing she's been in. And he was like, hot. He was all mad that now people are reading this thinking his favorite actress is Juliette Lewis, who is a fine actress. This is not to slander Juliette Lewis.
Can we just keep that rumor going that Jeff Jarrett is a huge Juliette Lewis marker?
Yeah. Loves her work and her band. Just crazy about the gal.
I read that it was actually her fault that TNA, that the whole, like, Jeff Jarrett had to get out of TNA because of Juliette Lewis.
Right. You know, the only interest I had in signing with TNA that because I thought Dixie Carter was the actress from Designing Women. And I was like, sign me up. This is my destiny. And then it all fell apart and didn't hear from Delta Burke. It was a mess. Once Meshack Taylor left, was not the same.
Yeah. Didn't they try to replace him with someone? Was that the Annie Potts years?
Yes, and then of course Jan Hooks was on later too.
Yes. Yeah.
Now that is, speaking of, and I just said Golden Girls is more popular than ever, and blah blah blah. That is a show designing women that seems to be not held to the same standard.
I think it's all about what gets shown in reruns on,
right.
I mean, just like another station has to pick it up and just show it repeatedly. Now, Golden Girls, one of the things that makes me laugh about Golden Girls is I had a professor in college whose mother from Korea would watch Golden Girls all day long, except she did not understand English.
A lot of people learn English that way.
But would laugh, like at all the right times, but did not understand English.
That's the value of broad writing.
Yeah.
You know?
Or laugh tracks.
Yes. I think another show that really, really did not age well is Murphy Brown.
See, I haven't watched that.
Because if you watch it, you'll be like, you would have had to read the politics section of the New York Times that day to understand what the fuck they were talking about. They would just be like these timely, like Noe references to stuff, which like by the next week would be useless. And now you're like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I have no context at all. Yet that show was always like very acclaimed. Yeah. And so is Candice Bergen. She's like, this is excellent. It's very smart and blah, 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 blah. But it's just dead now. Yeah. You know, that's the unfortunate thing about sometimes being too smart and too timely is that it's there and it's completely gone.
So maybe that's why Golden Girls stands the test of time. There are old, whorish women around.
Yes.
In Miami.
But also the great thing was like they were so not, I mean, if you think about it in your head, you would subconsciously assume that they were all like 80.
Yes.
But then, like Rue McClanahan was like 56. Yeah. Like not old at all.
And Estelle Getty was the youngest.
Estelle Getty was, I think, a year younger than B. Arthur.
Yeah. And I was watching an episode the other day, and like some of the humor, like most of the jokes you could get away with, some you could not. I saw one where Rue McClanahan's daughter came to visit, and she was a plus-sized model.
Oh, God.
And she walks in, and she says hello to all the women, and Betty White says to her, so what brings you to Miami? And Sophia says, my guess is a small barge. And I think you could get away with that today. I don't know if they'd even go the plus-size model route. I don't know.
But it's so funny that comment is like just a joke. They keep moving on. Like it's not even a plot point. It's not even like, what did you say? It's just like we laugh and keep moving. You're like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
But another, now that I'm just bringing up underrated shows, I always, and I argue with Xavier Woods about this a lot, the show Maude.
Great show.
Great show. Unbelievable acting. Very morally written. If there was a joke like that on the show, it would have a discussion, you know, and a climax and a conclusion, a moral stance on it. It was really one of those shows, and I think very relevant. I mean, that there was an abortion episode, and then she ended up moving to Washington and getting into politics. Like there was a lot there, but I think it's too much for people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even though, you know, there's stuff like very broad fact jokes on the Golden Girls, Maude brings a lot of baggage with it. And that's not what people want to watch.
Right. True.
You know, especially when it's an old show. Like, they really want to go back and, like...
Yeah. Yeah, everyone just wants to escape now. Like, no one wants to be learned when they go and watch a TV show now. They want to, like, just be dumb.
Yes. Well, even when I went through Larry Sanders, Larry Sanders show, it's emotionally exhausting. It's like, whoa, okay, I'm left with questions about my own life and career. That's not what I wanted.
See, I don't remember stuff. I do remember watching that show. I don't remember it being that deep, but then I was young, so maybe I just didn't get it.
Well, especially with the entertainment industry and functioning of like, and as you know, having to pick shit and deal with executives in charge of anything creative when they're not creative is just the biggest pain in the ass in the world.
I can imagine.
And it makes you just want to go insane, right? And
Yeah.
then so to see that on the screen and be like, it was just like that then, it made me feel both hopeful and helpless at the same time.
You're like, oh, people had to deal with this shit too, like years ago.
Yeah. And then I'm like, well, what chance do I have?
Well, here's the chance that you have. You can now
Yes.
make your own shit and don't worry about it.
Yeah, I guess I've had to.
I mean, well, yeah, that. But I mean, like, you can now go and start your own show like I did, and I'm on YouTube and you're on YouTube, and we can all go do our own thing. We don't have to answer anybody but ourselves.
Yes.
But then we're in charge of, like, putting it out. Because they're the gatekeepers, you got to kind of kiss their ass a little bit. But now that those are gone, we don't have to as much.
Yes, but then I also go, anytime you democratize technology in this way, because I now have access to basically the same technology that Whoopi Goldberg has on The View. She's doing this like just like we are, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure they've paid for a better version or whatever. They probably have a better webcam, but nevertheless. However, so does absolutely everyone else in the world.
Right.
So now, you know, you have to contend with just a lot more noise.
Yes.
You know, so I can get something made myself, done that way. But there's also, you know, just a world of just scroll your just your YouTube homepage. And it's just like, everyone's doing shit.
Yeah. Name the one person where once you hear they have a podcast or they have a show, it's all over. Like,
there's been a million. Every wrestling fan has a podcast. And you go to shows and it's like, hey, it's just a podcast. And it's got to a point, especially when right now in the middle of this, there's really no shows. I'm going on podcasts just to promote appearances on other podcasts. It's this, you know, loop of like whatever. And I'm like, guys, and the worst is, and I'll put it out there and then I'll put it out and people go, yes, because I know like wrestlers are like complain about it all the time, is when people have you on their show, you come on, it's, you know, and an hour of your time at least, usually, it's not nothing, and then they'll ask you, so where did you get trained? And it's like, a rudimentary search would tell you this, and I've also said it on 30 other podcasts.
Right.
And like, why do your listeners, especially if, you know, you want me to plug it and you want my fans to listen to it, why would they want to hear shit they already know?
Right.
Like, let's go somewhere else.
See, now I'm going to plug my own brilliance here.
Okay.
That's why I have a show called Not About Wrestling. I talk to wrestlers not about wrestling.
Yes. And yet I will really, really insist when I'm on a program that talks about wrestling to not talk about wrestling.
Yeah. So here you go. So
here we are.
Going to get more people. I do want to talk about sort of wrestling for a minute.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Well, not quite wrestling. But I saw online yesterday that you are going to be in Ready to Rumble 2 with Scott Conn and David Arquette. Is that true?
Yes. Actually, James Conn. It's just me and James Conn chain wrestling for 20 minutes. So like a web series kind of thing. It's sponsored by Lexus. It's great.
I'll tell you what. If James Conn got a podcast, then I think it's over.
I would love it.
But then I would imagine the hour meeting explaining what a podcast was to James Conn.
You know how it's going to start? It's going to start with this sound. Just of him sitting down and air exhaling from his nose. And then I want to hear the Paul Sorvino breathing podcast. That's what I want.
And then 15 minutes of what the fuck is this? Where does this go? Now, how do people hear this? What am I saying? Sure. You want to talk about that? We'll talk.
So they're on now. So it's like Larry King.
Yeah. Did you see that Larry King outlived 2 of his kids? He buried 2 kids last week.
Last week?
Yeah, like within the last week or 2. Yeah. One was 65.
Unreal.
Another one, well, one was a long bout with cancer. Yeah, within like the last couple weeks, buried 2 kids. Terrible that here, but
incredible age where, like, you know, he had no idea humans would be living this long when he was younger. So they were ready to kind of fast track life, and like even Regis had a a wife young and a kid young, and then, you know, Joy is his second wife and whatever, and then had a kid after that. And it's just one of those weird things to look back, and it's like at age 18, he had a kid, and you're like, what the hell? And then he started his career. But now, if I had a kid, I'd be like, to shut down shop. I have to make them their own Instagram.
It reminds me, there was an old, remember the comedian Larry Miller?
Yes.
Larry Miller had that bit where like his father would go into a mine and work for like 12 hours a day, come home, fix everything in the house, like do everything. He's like, now on a Saturday, if I run one errand and go to the dry cleaners, I'm exhausted. You know, like I can't do two things at once without being like, oh God.
It's horrible. It's also like, especially now, like, so I'm in Toronto. There's a lot of restrictions when they do the anything now. It's very restrictive. You got like the masks and everything. The whole I think we're doing it correctly so far. It's now exhausting to go food shopping because I'm slower and more careful, and I'm like, oh, and then I'm just like, that was all I had. That all the energy I had was just to go food shopping. What is like? Am I getting weaker?
Are you still wiping down your food? We went through a phase where we wiped down our food.
Somebody called that sanitation theater, and that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
You know, I don't think it does anything. No, but it makes me feel like it does something.
Let's say they've already proven that, like, I don't know if Corona can actually live on surfaces like that, but let's say it does, and you're wiping it off, and now it's on the surface of the napkin that you're still touching and moving over. Like, does it really matter? You're just moving it from place to place. You've already touched. You know, that's my thing with the masks too. Like, when I wear a mask and people are like, well, you know, does that mask protect you? Does it? For me, the purpose of the mask is remind me not to touch my fucking face and remind me not to get near people. It's not really to stop things. It's to keep me from going near things.
Yes.
With the mask.
I like it. We've always had a lot of people in Toronto who wore masks on the bus. So I'm like, oh, turns out they were right. Like, I don't really think it's like that much of an issue. Like, if you go downtown, if you take the subway downtown right now, it feels like you'll see the same amount of people with masks on. Like, that's how many people I used to see with them on here.
Yeah.
So but I like wearing them.
I don't mind.
I like cursing out people under my breath.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's enjoyable. Now I have to really smile with my eyes more when I look at people.
Do you like not having to make small talk as much?
People still do it. You go get a coffee or something at Starbucks, and they're like, meh, and it's really frustrating. I don't know if my small talk jokes have landed. Because sometimes you'll make a comment that doesn't warrant a full ha laugh, right? You're not going to go, it's just weird. But so it would normally just get a, which is all, you know, right. And now I see this. What is this? Just, I don't know. I have no idea. Are they alarmed by me, or do they find me humorous? I'm not quite sure.
That's true. I double up on it. I wear the mask and then do the hat forward. So all you can really see is like this part of me.
Yeah.
And that really like screws with people. So
I like it. I like it. And I'm going to the gym now. The gym's like just opened here in the last couple weeks. And you can take your mask off while exercising. Okay. But the second you stop a set or whatever, you have to put it back. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep it on because it's so much work to take it on and off. You know?
Our gyms are still not open in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, yeah. Okay, fine. That's okay.
Yeah. Well,
You'll get there.
Have you seen some people in New Jersey? It's all we do.
Yeah. No, I know.
That's all we do. That and complain.
Yeah, but like the people in New Jersey I've seen are clearly just like arms and chest people. So if you have a barbell in your garage, like you should be fine. I don't think you need the hip abductor machine. You're gonna be totally okay.
My gym still had one of those machines where you like almost lock your head in, and then you put the weights on the thing, and then you do this. That looks like just an insurance problem ready to happen.
I loved that one. I also loved the forearm machine where you just roll that thing up and then roll it back down.
Yeah, that I loved.
It was great stuff.
Yeah, I'm like, which of these machines are going to cause bodily harm?
There's also another neck one that it's a band with a chain, and then you can just basically hook it up to whatever you want. Which is, I mean, you can hook it up to a truck and try to walk backwards. It gives you so many options.
I feel like those machines, no one uses them, but it's probably such a hassle to get them out of the gym that they're just like, fuck it, we'll just leave it here.
Yeah. I feel like you curry good favor, like those gyms, saying like, well, we do have the neck machine.
Yeah.
I think that gives us a real cutting edge here.
When I rejoin my gym, because I quit before Corona, when I rejoin my next gym, I'm going to go, what are your neck machines? Show me your neck machines. Guys,
I need something here. Do you have the 4-way neck machine? My old one had a 2-way, and that wasn't enough ways, and I had to leave.
Do you have the one that does this? Do you have that one? Building up my forearms. So, I mean, I want to wrap up. Is there anything you want to talk about? I go to your YouTube channel religiously. You're playing WrestleFest.
Yep.
I watched the entire episode where that goddamn earthquake couldn't do. You're going for the perfect elimination, is what I'm guessing.
I'm going for the perfect Royal Rumble. I want a Royal Rumble where I can eliminate every contestant. The clean sweep, which is 9 of them. Incredibly difficult. Earthquake is the first person I won the Royal Rumble with. However, I didn't eliminate anyone. Or I didn't eliminate everyone. The thing about WrestleFest that is so cruel is that no matter how many coins you put in, if you get thrown out of the Rumble, like, you're out.
Yeah.
You don't come back in like, sorry.
Right.
You could have loaded up on all the coins at the arcade.
Yeah.
You know, and you get tossed by, Crush. Crush like, sorry, I'm taking all your money. You have to start everything all over again.
Now, on the console you're playing, if you get eliminated, does the game keep going or is it just over?
Well, it keeps going, but without you.
Without you. So you have to sit there and watch.
Yeah. And I'm like, all right, well, yeah.
Is a perfect Rumble even possible? Like, is that possible in the game?
I've done it before. I've done it before, seldomly. But so I have a hunch that the only worth it people in the game are Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior. Like, they really stacked the deck for those guys, like they did in real life. Even though you would think Earthquake would be a lock.
Yeah.
Rumble-wise.
Right.
I distinctly remember Mr. Perfect and Ted DiBiase being horribly weak in the game. Which was so cruel and noticeably smaller than everyone else when they were not that small. So I'm really going to unlock the game developer bias conspiracy here.
I also find it fascinating that arguably the two best real life workers are the two worst in the game.
But they were such good workers that as a kid you thought they were shit.
Right.
You didn't go, what a great sell. It wasn't an 8-year-old going, way to get it back, Mr. Perfect. Great psychology.
Mr. Perfect bouncing around like a pinball wasn't on your radar.
But, they worked smaller and lighter to feed for those guys to make them look like monsters, especially if you're working someone like Andre. It didn't dawn on me how immobile he was.
Oh, yeah.
When I was a kid, you know?
Yeah.
I just thought he's so large.
Like what?
But I didn't go. Yeah, but there was a couple years there where he just looks incredibly fragile.
Yeah,
and it's very frightening.
And then what do? They put him in a tag team with Haku.
And it did not dawn on me that it was so Haku could really do the work.
Yes. Yeah.
Everything was hidden.
On the flip side, he really shouldn't have been moving. Like, the man had serious back problems.
Yes, I think he had, and take the gigantism out of it, he had an incredibly long career. Like, anybody's body would be broken after doing that much shit.
Yeah. Probably all the drinking.
And the drinking, yeah, and not taking care of himself. Yeah, absolutely.
We can't leave on a downer, so give me something good that's going on for you.
What is going good? When does this come out?
It'll probably come out next week, so 4 or 5 days.
Okay, well then now the movie is out. You Cannot Kill David Arquette.
Yeah.
It's streaming digital on demand August 28th. So presuming this is after the 28th, the movie should be out.
I've heard amazing feedback about it.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, it's also a downer.
Well, okay. You know what? Let's talk about it real quick because I always felt, and I hope I'm not the only one that feels this way, that the guy got a fucking raw deal. It's not as though he walked into WCW and said, "Give me the title."
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, and getting to speak to him when I didn't really know him or know the circumstance was not his fault. And he didn't go in, he went in with the best of intentions.
Yes.
He didn't exactly know what the score was, that he would have that backlash. And also at that time in WCW, that was the least of their problems.
Oh, yeah, of course.
So the theory that, he killed WCW is entirely incorrect. Having said that, I did watch Ready to Rumble with him before we actually fought. I was like, the best part was he didn't own it, so he had to pay for it. Number one. Number two, we watched it, and he's not really a prominent wrestler in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
He's, a comedic foil. Oliver Platt is the only actual wrestler.
Right.
And then Scott Conn does a lot of shit too. So I remember looking at him going, why did they ask you to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I think I was the only guy who would have said yes. Which makes, a lot of sense. Because, James Caan doesn't, he's a serious actor. He doesn't really do that kind of stuff anymore. Neither does, I guess, Oliver Platt.
Mm-hmm.
But David's motto in life is really just to say yes and then figure it out as you go. And that's both freeing and also gets you into a lot of danger sometimes.
Yeah.
Especially, being his tag team partner. I would we would be getting in a ring before a match, and my phone would go off, and it was a text from his wife saying, please make sure he doesn't get hurt. He has a movie to film next week. And then I would look up at him and he'd go, I think I want to do an Undertaker dive over the ropes. I was like, well, have you done one before? He's like, no. And I was like, well, then you're not doing one tonight. It was really, teaming with him was basically a real life version of Clifford. And I was Charles Grodin and he was Martin Short. That's the best way I can explain my relationship with him.
We might have to end there because that might be my favorite quote. So.
Always end on Charles Grodin. It's a rule of thumb.
Clifford quote. Well, RJ, I want to thank you for coming on. We're going to have you on again.
Thank you.
Plug all of your stuff. I don't know why I keep saying Will. I'm the only person that's doing it.
You and your team. Yes.
My toys and my producers will handle.
I can't wait to see what the editor does with all of this.
It's going to stay all one big interview.
Yep.
There's going to
and please leave in the end where we actually we hit the end button.
I'm gonna do one of the, and I'm gonna go, okay, it was great, and I'm gonna show my finger like they used to do. Like, do I do this? And then, oh wait, I gotta move the mouse. While you're talking, I'm slowly moving the mouse over. But RJ, thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Yes, thank you, and
Take
God
care.
bless you.
And that brings another episode of Not About Wrestling to a close. Guests of the Not About Wrestling show stay in their own damn houses. If you like the show, please share it on social or leave a review on iTunes. And remember to subscribe to Not About Wrestling on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com/BroBible and find the Not About Wrestling section. Thanks again for listening or watching, and see you all next week. Well, I won't see you at all. You know what I mean.